Have you ever generated really good 3D model, but the texture just ruins everything? Artifacts, blurry details, weird seams, texture logo is broken. This is one of the biggest bottleneck in 3D AI right now. So in this video, I'm gonna show you best AI texturing workflow I use myself. We'll take this character and go step by step, generate clean base texture, refine it with AI, add proper PBR maps. I show you how to generate normal map with AI. This is by far fastest workflow I know, and I tested a lot of tools. We're gonna use best AI tools available, and main tool is actually still free. Honestly, this is most complete guide on AI texturing you can find on YouTube. Let's start. Okay, so it all starts from references, of course. Here is the character we're gonna create today. One of the coolest, I have this concept for a while and it's time to actually unleash it. Of course, if you want to create it nicely and don't have problems when texturing, etc., you're gonna need to care about preparation. And the preparation also starts from here. You're gonna need to prepare it in parts. I have a dedicated video about it, how important is that. And again, it's way easier to texture the coat alone or the head alone, the gloves alone, etc., and then combine them all together. First of all, more texture resolution, of course. If you have only one object with one 4K textures, that 4K textures is for all the parts, and they must squeeze into this one 4K, right? I mean, I don't say 4K is not enough. For some characters, maybe. But if you're creating main hero, I bet should be bigger. So I prefer to split it. My character today will be split into the body, head, coat, and arms. So now when we have our object ready, which if you follow normal workflow should be optimized model, we have two options. If that is a prop or a simple object, I really recommend do texturing in Tripo where you can upload your object or you can do it right away after generation. But again, in reality, you'll always need some tweaks. You might generate object few times, still you want to adjust something, maybe you're gonna do manual UV, then you can drop it here, add the reference image and do texturing. Nonetheless, you do have options to later upscale it and even add PBR. That might work for props, simple characters, etc. There is free alternative for Tripo, which is Hunyuan if we talk about web versions, but I really don't like it right now. It is way worse than Tripo and it's quite limited. I use it a lot and this 20 generation per day is not enough and the quality is not good. You might also mention there is trellis that you can run in Comfy, stable projectors or anything like that. Guys, I tested them all. We do have Top 3D AI to compare how good it is. And trellis is number 15. So local models in reality not that good. However, even Tripo is not enough when it comes to text, logos, complex models, etc., especially keeping all together with the materials and stuff. We need more control, and for this we do have Modif, and mainly we're gonna use it. And good news for you guys, it is free. And of course guys, link for Modif and Tripo will be in the description, and for Tripo I do have juicy promo code for you. Take a look. Let's go. So we're gonna use Modif in first place, which is free and way better. So I assembled my character in Blender. I basically connected all the parts. I did some fixes to the object, removed some unused geometry, removed some geometry that I didn't want. There was a gears on the jacket and I decided to remove some gears into separate object and just use them separately. And I want to texture the jacket without them. There was nice looking gear in terms of geometry and I decided like to basically copy it and replace those on jacket with it. And I also decided to keep it as a separate object to make it like metallic and so forth. And I was really happy with the results. It gives you way more control if you separate object before texturing. You can join them later and bake together. And in the end, I also decided to redo eyes and replace them by spheres. Again, with Triple P1, it's very easy to select eyes, remove them, and put the spheres, and then texture them properly. And when we have all objects ready, it doesn't matter. It can be with texture, without texture. I'm gonna show you the whole workflow. Most importantly, we're gonna need to get final geometry. And now it's time to actually go to Modif. And we're gonna need to create new private project, right? Okay, and I'm gonna import my character. I'm not gonna join the objects. I actually want to keep them simple. But if your object has more than one material, it will be automatically split by material. Okay, let's import that. Another thing worth mentioning is that Modif and Tripo and most of the services have polycount limit on uploading. In Tripo, you cannot upload something more than 1 million polygons. In Modif, it is 150k per object. Otherwise, it will be automatically simplified and you don't really want it because you cannot control it. For Pro version, you can upload up to 1.5 million, but I don't really recommend do that anyway. That is just bad workflow. This is not that difficult to optimize. And Modif, by the way, has a simplify option that can actually reduce it to some decent amount of polygons and also big normal map, by the way. My objects are quite well optimized. I don't need to do that. So here we do have like scene preview where we can manipulate with objects, just mostly for the preview. And as I said, my head had two materials, so it was automatically split. So we're gonna rename it here into head and into eyes. Now to start working with the texture, we're gonna need to go to texture. And here we're gonna need to select right object which we want to use for start. We're gonna start with head. I just simply press on the object and it will be focused well in texture mode. So you might start with the base texture like I created in Tripo. And you can just do fixes here, generating normal map and other stuff. If that's the only problem you need to solve, you can jump forward, but creating texture from scratch gives way more quality. So we're gonna disable, and that's basically very important to start using Modif. So there's two main workflows: no texture, and we create it from views or multi-view. There is texture, and we're gonna add in painting region and generate texture only for that region. For that one, we're gonna need to add new layer, and we can keep existing texture. We're gonna talk about it later. Let's first disable base texture, reset in paint region, and we're gonna start with adding references. References are very important. I'm gonna add all references that I created. And now you need to select the active reference and make sure there is orange border. One important thing before we start generate is that you can go to a reference, press edit and remove the background. The thing is that it will actually remove everything and crop the image for more efficient texturing. This is a recommendation from developers and it really gives better results. Now we can actually set a view. You can see this dashed border around. So we're gonna set the view. For head, I recommend to start with view like this, and we can finally press generate image. Now we can see an image created and we can actually transfer it right to the model with the click of a button, like this. Here we go. How cool is that? And it looks quite nice. Now, before we move on, let me explain a very important trick here. There is this settings where you can choose the mode, which is realistic and albedo. And for pro artists, this is a must know. A realistic will actually create it with the lights, and you can see the lights and shadows that are affecting the texture. Albedo will try to remove all the light and create solid color. There is also a very important setting that we'll talk about later, which says partially regenerate texture area. So I'm gonna enable albedo and let's generate another image and compare the result. I created it. We can preview the image and you can see there are no shadows, at least not that much. And we can press edit layer and compare the result. Isolate selected layer, which we can activate, and when pressing on each layer, we can preview the layer alone. And here you can see the difference. Here's the realistic, which adds some shadows and stuff, and albedo. And I definitely prefer albedo more in this case. But sometimes realistic might give quite nice results, so definitely try. I will use albedo. Note, realistic also gives some additional options, and you can press this button to learn about it when and why. This is mostly for pro artists. Also, if you're first time using Modif, you're definitely gonna need to press this. You're gonna see hints like this, which I recommend to at least do a quick look. This might give you quite a lot of insights, but most of them I'll cover for you in this video. So this is the workflow I use. But there is also another option that I need to explain called multi-view, where there is a similar approach. The camera views are automatically created. You might delete some of them, but I'm not sure you need it. You selecting the reference image and press generate. It will basically create and project 8 views automatically, and you can sip your copy while watching this. Just so you know, almost any AI works pretty much the same, but that happens under the hood, and there might be way more than 8 views. Like in Tripo, they do more than 100 views merged together and making this texture possible. But doing that manually gives you way more control over what you expect on each side. And here's the results. quite good, I would say. So you can further refine it from here, or you can rework it if you're happy with the result. You might see there are some missed areas. That is very easy to fix pressing this button, fill missing areas. It fills by approximate color, so you're gonna still need to retexture them with in painting or layers. However, I prefer another workflow that gives me more control, and I'm gonna go back to single view and I'm gonna start doing it one by one myself with albedo selected and settings like this. This setting mostly should be yes when we do layer projections, and no when we're gonna go to patching later. Also, include other object will give this AI more context, and we're gonna need to use it for eyes. So I'm gonna do that, and you enjoy the time lapse. And one important thing to mention, when you have some complex characters and you want more control over what's on the right side, you can do it right in Modif absolutely for free. So we're gonna press these three dots and press create variations. I'm gonna say rotate head to the right, and it gives me a reference for the right, which I can immediately add as a new reference. And I continue with this new reference, and I'm gonna say close up shot to the eye and press generate. That will be needed for eye. How good is that? Nice. Add as new reference image. Now I can select new reference image for texturing from the side. Similar way you can create back view, add some text, and so forth. And just like that, we got this guy textured. And it looks quite nice. Note the eyes is not real eyes. We're gonna do that very soon. But before we move on, let me show you a few more things. Let's say I'm not happy with this area and this area. So for this, you're gonna use patching tool. And if you start with nice base texture, again, patching tools is your choice. The workflow is quite similar. You choose single image, but now we're gonna actually use this tool. And we need to select the area that we are gonna fix. So in my case, this will be this and this. We're also gonna need to add new layer, and one layer for all patching is enough, or you can combine them if you want more control, like in Photoshop. Same as before, we're gonna need to select a reference. I'm gonna select head back view and press generate. Now I also recommend to disable this option because when it creates an image, it will take into account surrounding texture and might adjust the surrounding texture. I'm pretty happy with the surrounding texture. I want it to fit. So in this case, I don't want to partially regenerate any texture around. So let's generate it again. When you have nice result, you're gonna choose this in paint tool and you simply paint on top. Actually, I'm not happy with this one. I'm gonna choose the view, add a little bit here, and let's create it again. Okay, now way better. Similar way you can fix anything. Now let's move to the eyes. I'm gonna open object menu and choose eyes. So for eyes, I'm gonna choose this reference, and I definitely gonna need to enable these settings, include other objects. Otherwise, it will definitely not understand what is this spheres. And let's press generate. This is just an example how to use these settings, but technically, of course, you better just apply the texture on the sphere that you create in Blender. In case of eye animation, of course, you need to care about all this area. In my case, I'm gonna ignore this for now, and we can also go back to the scene and preview how it looks together with the head. And I think it looks just amazing. You can go back to texture, and how about we go to the body? Okay, so I do have quite a mess here in texture. Let's go back to reference. Here, I really don't need these gears since these gears will be a separate object that I created in 3D. I'm just gonna go to again to create variation, and here I can mask some area and I'll say remove these gears from suit. And here we go, amazing. But I also want to remove these bracers since bracers are detached. Let's add and continue, and now I'm gonna paint these bracers and say remove bracers. Okay, this is the perfect reference I want for the body. Let's add it as a new reference. Now I'm gonna choose it. I'm gonna disable my main texture, and I'm gonna do same exact flow with single view and adding layers. Enjoy time lapse. Also, there is a very useful tool if you're using this layer, not patching, and there is some area that you don't like on some layer and mostly you like the layer. So let's preview this layer, for example. And let's say I want to redo this part. I'm gonna press three dots. I'm gonna say edit mask here. By pressing right button, you can actually add a mask. The masked area will be removed from the layer. And you can see the mask added here. So you can see on this layer now, this area is hidden and we can actually regenerate it. And just like that, look how far we got. And I think this is just an amazing result. Also note, this time I used realistic, so that's why you can see some shading. If you're gonna use albedo, you'll most likely not see the shading and maybe you don't want it. So as I said before, definitely give it a try and see what works best for you. Now, after texture is finished, it's time to do some patching, and if there are some errors, you might actually want to address it. Oh, there was a problem with the polygon. I think this is because this area is hidden by arms. This will be covered, so that's not a problem. We can already preview the result partially, and I think it looks just amazing. Okay, 2 parts done. Okay, now let's move to the hands. And since I mirrored the hands, I actually gonna need to texture only one. And I also show you how you can generate normal map with the hand. First, of course, we're gonna need to do color layer. We're gonna use the same exact approach. We're gonna use the reference that I created. Let's start generating image. Normal map usually is created either on top of geometry or on top of the texture to highlight some areas more. So they are not just flat, but they are actually interacting with the light. Okay, so now here we have the hand, but what you see is mostly details added by texture. How about if we can add these scars and make them to reflect with the lights, but without adding them on the geometry? This is why exactly we need normal map. So if we go into normal map, in viewport you change to the normal map here, you'll see there's actually simple mesh. So we can go to normal map menu, which is here. Now what we can see here is that we can select the object and we can generate it. We can also go to PBR and we can preview how it currently works, and there is a light here that goes around to show you exactly what part interacts or not. So now let's go back to normal and press generate normal. What it will do, it will actually take the color map and try to generate normal map on top of that, such as details here. Here we do have only in paint and we can selectively paint some details on top, just like that. Similar way, you can change the view, generate it again, and selectively apply the normal map where it looks good. Now, of course, you can preview the result. And there's a very cool feature here. We can go back to PBR and look how cool this part looks right now. You can disable normal map and it will go back to flat, and you see the difference. This one is flat, you can feel them flat. And this one is with normal map, and all these things now reflecting with the light. You can play with the setting to see it more. Similar way, you can add normal to anything. It can be body, it can be head. Let's enhance head, for example, the mouse. So right now it looks like this, and if we preview it here, so here's what we see. Quite flattish. Let's go back to normal and let's generate it. So I just added like few more details and let's see the difference. Here is without it and here is with it. And as you can see, it immediately added depths and we didn't change the geometry. If there are scars, anything like that, you'll definitely use this tool to add more details and make your model look way cooler. Normal map is very powerful on objects with a lot of details, which needs to be low poly. So here's one of the example with the knife from developer, and you can see like the texture, there's quite a lot of details, and when adding details on the normal map, the result is actually insane. It looks almost real. So again, depending on the objects that you work, normal map can add a lot. Now I'm gonna finish tail in the similar way, and I'm gonna show you a few more tips how you can process it. I'm gonna review the result in Blender, and I'm gonna show you even more how you can edit material property or generate them. And just look at it. I think it's amazing, and we were able to do that very fast. Now, to export the character, you can export it all at once, or you can select the object, and in texture mode, you can export a particular texture. If you're exporting textures alone, not exporting all at once as GLB or something, you might also need to export normal map separately. You can do that same way. Now I'm gonna replace all textures in Blender, and let's review the results. And just look at him. I think it's just an amazing work. I do have everything optimized. Eyes separate, gears separate, stuff separate. What I did basically, I just connected textures and normal map, connected it in Blender in the right way, and I also did some material property. Now here's the important thing. Most of you might know how to tweak this material property. So for example, you can make it more metallic or more roughness. If you don't know, here's this. In Blender, it's here. In different engines like Unreal Engine, you can find it in different places. But there's also a maps like metallic and roughness map that you can create that might be useful, for example, for body. So professional artists, of course, know that. But for beginners, let me break it down very quick. So I have this watches and the suit. And if I set metallic, set it like roughness to make it like more metallic and gold, the rest of the suit will look very bad. It means it's non-uniform. So we need this one to be metallic and this one not metallic. So we're gonna set it to default, and there's two ways to solve it. First one, in Blender, it's very easy to create a texture. I'm gonna press Shift A here, create a color texture, and create new image texture. So I'm gonna create new, and let's call it body RGH, which stands for roughness. It can be 1K, that's fine. We disable alpha and create new image. I'm gonna connect this image to roughness, and here's the thing. Value can be texture, because in 3D, when we talk about maps, black might be 1, white might be 0. Or the opposite, depending on the map. In this case, completely black texture says that whole surface is 0 roughness, which means if we start painting this texture and paint something white, it will tell it that this area that covers in white will be 1 roughness and make it completely non-reflective. Also important thing in Blender, you must set all property maps to non-color like that. That will eliminate artifacts. I can press on this map and go to texture paint. And first I'm gonna paint it all to the gray with this fill, which will make it like default. Now I'm gonna go back to texture paint. My brush will be more dark, like which here you can see the value. And I'm gonna paint only the watches with the brush. Alternatively, you can paint it or you can select it like I just did and then fill it, which will affect only the selected object. That can be easier. Or you can paint it with a brush. Now, if you go back to shading, what we can see is that our glass and chain is actually quite reflective, while the body remain rough. Similar way as roughness, you can create metallic map, or even you can create emission map. You basically draw on the model and mark the areas that should be emissive and export that map, and that perfectly works in Blender, Unity, and other software. This is how easy it is. However, if you got extra penny when you have your textured object, you can try to do that with Tripo and generate PBR. So what you're gonna need to do, we're gonna export this body alone. So I'm gonna remove this texture for a while. I'm gonna export the body in GLB. I'm gonna go to Tripo, upload the model. I'm gonna upload the body. Wait until it's processed. Now I do have it here. Let's remove, make shading smooth. Looks good. Now we can go to texture, and here we can choose PBR and generate PBR. And here's the result from Tripo. So I don't think it made glasses more reflective, but what I can see, it actually made boots quite nice. Look, the boots are way too reflective, but the rest, the suit is not reflective, which is actually great. It should be like that. So quite interesting. Like for this part, it actually looks good. So we can export it and preview that in Blender, what it actually creates. So you can see it created metallic roughness as OREM map. It's basically two maps together. Since each map only reflects value from 0 to 1, they pack it to each channel. So for example, green channel is roughness and blue channel is metallic. It's sort of like an industry standard. You can bake it together or not depending on the engine that you use. In GLB, they are usually packed. And Tripo, when export to GLB, also do that. So you can see it even created normal map with some details. This might save some time, and on Tripo it is almost free. So definitely use it. And with this workflow, you can create amazing characters like this, and look how amazing it looks inside the game. And also guys, I really want you to understand these things are keep getting better, so keep eye on it. So hit that subscribe and bell button to always be up to date. See you in the next video.